welcome to another edition of the Town Administrator Update here on B News. I'm your host, Sydney Bowles, and I'm joined, as always, by Town Administrator Paul Sagarino. Paul, welcome. Thanks for being here.
It's always a pleasure, Sydney.
So we're mere hours from the end of the fourth night of town meeting, which is, I'm relatively new in town. I've been here for like a year and a half, and this is the longest that I've experienced. Is it common for it to go 4 nights in May when it's?
I'd say between 2.5 and 3 is more typical. Occasional 4, almost never a 5.
Gotcha.
I do think there has been a few 5s in the past, but very rare occurrence.
Okay, so a longer town meeting, but we did it. Town meeting got through it, and it was a big agenda. There was a lot of really important stuff on there. So I'm hoping that we can just talk a little bit about some of the changes that happened.
Yeah, absolutely. It was a great town meeting. I would consider it very successful. You know, a lot of new faces in the crowd, which is great because it's drove a lot of very lively discussion. A lot of different viewpoints were exchanged, and you know, I considered it a really enjoyable town meeting, even though it was 4 nights.
Yeah. So I think probably the largest item, or one of the more impactful items, I think, is the MBTA Communities Compliance Plan that passed. This is something that the town sort of had to do to be in compliance with the state, and we joined a growing list of communities that are sort of joining up and following through with these zoning changes. Mm-hmm. So what does it mean for the town? What does it say that we said yes to these changes?
Well, like I say, I think the planning board and the working group did a really good job in trying to balance like all the work that Burlington's always been a leader in multifamily housing. We have a lot of great multifamily housing in town, and the town's always accepted multifamily housing where it makes sense. So I think the planning board and Liz did a great job of taking advantage of the fact that we have been accepting of multifamily housing, and also you know, we're working on the entire redevelopment of the Mall Road commercial area. That's going to involve some housing where it makes sense for us to maintain the strong values of our commercial sector. So housing in that area is where we would love to target it, and we feel it'll enhance the whole area, enhance our commercial values, which we all know our commercial taxpayers pay about 2/3 of the property tax levy here, so it's hugely important to our budget process and our ability to provide the services the residents want at, you know, a relatively affordable price for the residents, comparatively speaking. So I think it was a very successful plan. It was very well thought out. And like I say, it takes advantage of all the work that's been done to date. It gives a little bit of an opportunity to in an area that we think is a good place for housing.
It's like the Staples Plaza, sort of Middlesex Turnpike.
Yeah. So most of the areas, it's unlikely that an apartment complex is going to get torn down to build a new apartment complex. Maybe at some point in the future, but nothing's going to happen right away. There's one area that is ripe for housing. And again, the area that we think it's most important for the town to consider more housing is to really enhance our commercial district. That work, you know, walkability, you know, work, live, play type environment that we hope to enhance in our commercial district. So it was a big success. I think it was very well supported by town meeting. So kudos to Liz and the working group and the planning board for their efforts. Yeah,
I think it was interesting. What you're saying reminds me of some of the conversation that was had about other zoning articles that were also approved last night, which were Liz Bonventry, the planning director's work on use table modernization and on parking and landscaping updates. And I'm going to sort of summarize these. These are sort of like wonky stuff that I kind of understand but won't pretend to fully grok. But the vibe is basically that her intention is to bring Burlington up to the expectations that other towns sort of have around what businesses do when they move in terms of being good neighbors, having landscaping that sort of contributes to the town and addresses heat island stuff, but also zoning rules and regulations that are legible, streamlined, so that businesses looking to move here can look at what we're doing and say, oh yeah, that makes sense, we can move there, that's easy. And it feels very much this sort of outward-facing effort to appeal to businesses to come here and contribute to Burlington's lively commercial district. Does that seem like sort of the energy?
Absolutely. You know, there's nothing that we can do better than have really clear and concise zoning guidance. companies want to be able to look to the table and say, yep, that's allowed there. They want to be able to act quickly. We've heard for years now that, speed to get there is extremely important, especially with the life science businesses. It just makes common sense to have a roadmap that everybody can understand rather than a lot of, convoluted paragraphs that need interpretation. Mm-hmm. And we've heard that a lot. There's a committee in town working to straighten out the sign bylaws. Another area that's very, let's just say, convoluted mm-hmm. and causes businesses a lot of extra cost and stress, as opposed to just saying, these are the types of signs you can have on your building in this area. So I applaud the effort. It's really kind of building blocks for what we plan to present to the town in September. We want to enhance the ability of the businesses to succeed in this area. We all know that there's been major changes to retail, to the way office workers mm-hmm. work, and we need to really be flexible to adapt to the times. And in return, I think the town's going to get a lot of benefits just in terms of elevated design and how things look, more emphasis on public spaces and, mm-hmm. and how properties connect to each other, walkability, sustainability, green spaces, all those things I think are what we hope to get in return, for just laying out a roadmap for some additional, growth in the commercial district.
Yeah. I want to pivot to one of the other major items that went through town meeting this time around. This is something that has been a major bucket list item for years and years in town, a new police station. This was, it seems like a really huge accomplishment for you and for Police Chief Thomas Brown. So how does it feel?
We're just very proud, and Burlington's a community that's always strongly supported our police department, and believe me, they deserve it. They are exceptional. Like I say, we've had conversations about this on this town administrator update. Everywhere I go, everyone wants to know how we've created this environment for such an exceptional police department. We owe it all to the officers, their efforts and their training, and just their exceptionalism on the job. And it takes a while to get caught up on these infrastructure needs. These projects are very expensive. You always have to concern yourself about the impact on taxes. But it's time, and we're very proud of town meeting support of the project very, very strongly. And again, the town has always supported our police department 100%. And I'm so happy because the men and women of Burlington Police really deserve better than, they've been using this building for years without complaining, and, it's just gone way beyond its useful life. So I'm ecstatic about the support we receive for the project, and we're looking forward to, bringing that to fruition over the next 3 years.
It's interesting you mentioned the impact on taxes there. I think this was something that was the subject of a fair amount of conversation here and there throughout town meeting and this session. You would hear these moments where someone would stand up and say, hang on a minute, this is all well and good, but let's think about the impact this is going to have on people's taxes, right? I mean, there was conversations about increased demand at People Helping People, the food pantry, this sense that a lot of folks are struggling to make ends meet with inflation, cost of things like groceries, just everything is expensive these days, including the cost of building things like a police station. There was an approval of a $4.77 million field project at Marshall Simons Middle School that's going to potentially need to be bonded and raise taxes. If I'm remembering correctly, the police station will result in an average of a $150 a year tax increase for the median households, or the median taxpayer. Those add up, right? And it's something that I know that you and the administration consider when you're thinking about balancing all these expenses. So I don't know, just talk about how you hold all that.
Wow, that's a long sentence there. I'll try to, let me start at the beginning. I've always felt that one of the most difficult things we do as a town, our elected boards and town meeting, is to try to prepare a budget. We have 28,000, 26,000 residents in town. Every different resident has a different ability to pay. So we have residents that would gladly pay twice as much in taxes for more services or more facilities. And then we have residents that can't afford to pay $1 more, or they're going to have to find a new place to live. And I've always considered that one of the most difficult balancing acts that we have to do, as a town, is to try to prepare a budget that sort of as best as possible, meets the need of the wide variety of folks that live here and their demographics, their ability to pay, their willingness to pay. It really is a challenge, and I think that over the years we've worked really hard to balance, the competing interests. Some folks want to pay a fortune and have a lot of new shiny things, and again, some folks are on a fixed income, and that next tax bill just could break them where they can't afford to live here anymore. So it's very difficult, and again, we had very vibrant discussions. The police station, I think we're very fortunate, as we stated earlier. Essentially, the commercial businesses will pay 2/3 of our police station and 2/3 of every project as we move forward. $150 is nothing to some people, and it's a lot to some people. So we are very cognizant of it, and we really do our best to try to balance out all those interests as we present a budget and a spending plan to town meeting.
Right. So again, Paul, this was just a jam-packed town meeting, and there's always more that we could discuss. Is there anything else that you would want to highlight before we transition a little bit?
I think the discussion about the town clerk's position was interesting last night.
So just
I guess it's not a surprise now that it's on BCAT, but I think our town clerk had alerted myself and the select board that she has intentions of retiring in the relatively near future. She has some concerns about the future of her position and, the difficulty it is to attract somebody with the exact skill set needed to do her job. We've been blessed over the years. I've personally worked with two exceptional clerks, Amy and her predecessor, Jane Chu, top notch. And it's a very complicated job. They're in charge of some very potentially difficult things, elections. A lot of stuff can go wrong in the town clerk world, and we've always had exceptional service from that position. But as you move forward, as the job becomes more and more specialized, it just becomes a little bit more difficult to think that, we're going to have the perfect person, living within our borders. There's probably plenty of people within town qualified, but are they looking for a job? Are they willing to step forward for the position? Are they willing to run in an election to win a job?
Right.
These are a lot of things that are uncertain. There's a trend out there in the state for these type of positions to move from elected to appointed. Select board thought it was a good idea to put this on the warrant for a discussion and sort of receive some feedback from town meeting. We hope to get more feedback this summer. Town meeting had, made a couple of requests as to things that would help them make better decisions.
Essentially, town meeting postponed just for
they
listeners.
postponed it till September.
Yeah.
They want some more information, job description, qualifications we'd be looking for, how the person gets appointed by who, all the normal things that you would normally present when you were presenting a change like this. So there was some pretty good discussion on it, and like I say, hopefully we'll, over the course of the summer, we'll get even more feedback and have a good proposal for town meeting. I'm pretty sure the board hasn't even made up its mind as to what the best way to proceed is. We've been successful over the years with the election process, so it's hard to point to it and say, hey, we've had a lot of problems, we need to change the way we've done it. That's the exact opposite of what we've had. We've had exceptional service from town clerks in Burlington, so it makes it a little bit more challenging of a decision, I think.
Right, yeah, it was really interesting. You're right. Town clerk Amy Warfield said basically, there's no right or wrong answer here. It's a judgment call, and she had this slide that she put up with sort of the pros and cons of each side, and there really are robust pros and cons to each of these decisions. And I can completely understand town meeting wanting to take time to consider this pretty robustly. So yeah, that'll be really interesting to see how that goes.
Absolutely.
Yep. All right, one last item I want to touch on, Paul, before I let you go. I was really delighted to see that a leader in our community has been noticed beyond our town borders. Julie Lewis is the senior pantry manager over at People Helping People, and she's been awarded a Commonwealth Heroine Award at the state level, which is an acknowledgement of women leaders whose work often goes unnoticed. She'll be receiving an award at a ceremony at the State House in a couple of weeks. I don't know, what does it mean to you, or what does it say to you that someone's getting this?
It's a significant achievement. I don't know her personally, but I do know of all the tremendous work that People Helping People does in the community. as we've heard a lot with everything that's going on economically in the world, the demands for their services have increased dramatically. They've always been there to answer the call. I remember, at the pandemic, they've always been there to service the town residents, and they just do an exceptional job. So, while we have the opportunity, don't forget your local food pantry. They're doing great things. So, if you have the ability to provide them with some assistance, whether it's cash or donations, I'm sure it'll be greatly appreciated. I know that the demands on the organization just seem to get more and more each and every year that goes by.
All right. Paul Sagarino, thank you as always. It's always great to have you here.
Thanks, Sydney. It's always a pleasure.
This has been another edition of our Town Administrator Update. Thanks for tuning in.